It was Halloween night, and the streets of our small town were alive with the sounds of laughter and screams. Costumed kids darted from house to house, their bags growing heavy with candy. I, however, was not part of the festivities. I was working just another late shift as a pizza delivery man. The clock struck 8, and the phone rang in the pizza shop. A large order popped up on the screen: 1 extra large pepperoni, 2 sides of garlic knots, and a 2-liter soda. The delivery address was on the outskirts of town, in a neighborhood that seemed to vanish into the woods. The manager looked at me, a glint of mischief in his eyes. "You up for it, Jake? It's Halloween. Could be fun." I shrugged, trying to sound brave. "Sure, I'll handle it." Deep down, though, a chill ran down my spine. I'd heard stories about that house, an old, creaky Victorian that had been abandoned for years. They said it was haunted, cursed even. But the thought of a hefty tip pushed the fear aside. I loaded the pizza into my car, the scent of melted cheese and pepperoni wafting through the air, and set off into the night. The streets were eerily quiet as I drove further from the festivities. The laughter faded, replaced by the rustling leaves and the occasional hoot of an owl. The moon hung high, casting long shadows across the road, making the trees look like clawing hands reaching for me. As I turned down the narrow road leading to the delivery address, the atmosphere shifted. The trees closed in, and fog began to creep along the ground, curling around my tires like ghostly fingers. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. The old house loomed ahead, its windows dark and empty, as if the building itself were holding its breath. I parked in the driveway, the gravel crunching under my tires. My heart pounded as I grabbed the pizza and stepped out of the car. The air was cold and thick, and an unsettling feeling settled over me. I approached the front door, the wood warped and cracked, with peeling paint that flaked away with each gust of wind. I knocked, my hand trembling slightly. Moments later, the door creaked open, revealing a figure cloaked in shadow. The only light came from a flickering candle behind them, casting eerie shapes on the wall. "You're here for the pizza," the figure rasped, their voice low and gravelly. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, 1 extra large pepperoni." The figure stepped aside, allowing me to enter. The interior was just as unsettling as the exterior. Dust motes danced in the air, and the smell of damp wood filled my nostrils. I handed over the pizza, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. As I turned to leave, I noticed the walls were lined with old photographs, faded images of people I didn't recognize. Their faces were eerily blank, their eyes hollow. A chill ran through me. I quickened my pace toward the door when I heard a low whisper, almost like a soft chant. "Stay, just a little longer." I hesitated, the whisper echoing in my ears. I really need to go." "Thanks for the order." I pushed the door open, but it wouldn't budge. Panic surged as I pulled harder. The door creaked ominously, and I felt a presence behind me. "Why not join us?" the figure said, stepping closer. Their face was partially illuminated by the candlelight, revealing sunken cheeks and dark, hollow eyes. "We're having a little gathering." I finally managed to force the door open and bolted outside. The night air hit me like a wave, and I ran for my car. My heart raced as I fumbled for my keys, glancing back at the house. The figure stood in the doorway, watching me, a sinister smile creeping across their face. I jumped into my car, locking the doors and starting the engine with shaking hands. I glanced in the rearview mirror, and for a brief moment, I saw the faces from the photographs, their hollow eyes staring back at me from the fog. I hit the gas and peeled away from the house, my heart pounding in my chest. As I drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being followed. Shadows flickered in the trees, and I felt eyes on me, watching my every move. I turned onto the main road, the town lights finally coming into view, but the tension still clung to me like a wet blanket. When I reached the pizza shop, the familiar sight of neon signs and laughter brought a rush of relief. I parked, took a deep breath, and stepped out. My manager looked up from behind the counter. How'd it go, Jake? Did you scare yourself? I chuckled nervously, trying to brush it off. You could say that. That house is something else. I glanced back toward the road, half expecting to see the figure standing there. But nothing. As I closed the shop for the night, the unease lingered. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had delivered more than just pizza. That something dark had been waiting for me at that house, and it wasn't just the ghost stories. Later that night, as I lay in bed, I replayed the events over and over in my mind. The whisper, the figure, those haunting photographs. I shuddered at the thought. Just as I began to drift off, a loud knock echoed from my front door. Startled, I sat up, my heart racing. I glanced at the clock, midnight. Who could it be at this hour? I slowly made my way to the door, dread pooling in my stomach. Peeking through the peephole, I saw a figure standing in the dim light, a silhouette, the same shape from the house. My breath caught in my throat, and I stepped back, adrenaline surging through me. Who is it? I called, trying to keep my voice steady. Delivering fear, just like you, the voice rasped, sending chills down my spine. I stumbled back, panic rising. As I backed away from the door, I felt the weight of unseen eyes watching me from the shadows of my own home. I knew then that Halloween night had delivered more than just a pizza. It had brought something sinister, something that wouldn't let me go.